Welcome to Being International podcast. In today's episode, we'll be talking about being an international student and both the positive and challenging experience of coming to Australia and study here. Before we begin, we acknowledge the traditional owner and custodian of the land in which we study and work. We'd like to pay our respect to the elders of past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge the Larrakia people of the Darwin region as the traditional owner and custodian of the land on which meeting is taking place. We also acknowledge that the great suffering that has occurred as a result of sharing this land and the role that social work has played in both historical and contemporary acts of colonization. We commit to truth-telling and acknowledge that this land was stolen and never ceded.
Hi, my name is Sajia, and today I'm going to talk about the number of international students that Australia welcomes every year and the great opportunities and challenges that these students face in their time studying in Australia. The number of international students studying in Australia courses total to 527,259 for the January to July 2022 period. There are great opportunities that exist in Australia for these international students, but there are also various challenges, and it can feel very isolating, and there are also social barriers that cause an issue in their lives. This podcast helps to reduce the social barriers and cultural taboos faced by many newly arrived migrants and international students by honoring their voices and lived experiences. We hope that by sharing our stories that other international students will be inspired to pursue their goals, feel less isolated, anxious, or alone, and come to value the important role that culturally and linguistically diverse communities play in Australian society. We hope you enjoy the podcast.
Hello, namaste, and jojalapa to everyone who are listening to this podcast. My name is Daisy, and this is my birth name, not my English name. I'm from Nepal, born and raised in small town. I speak 3 different languages, and English is my 3rd language. I may mispronounce any word in English because of being multilingual. I arrived in Australia in 2014. It is my first time when I took my international flight. I am currently studying my master's degree in social work at Charles Darwin.
Great. Daisy. Hi everyone, my name's Hannah. I was born in Jakarta, Indonesia. I also came to Australia on a student visa in 2008, and I'm currently doing my bachelor's in social work also at CDU.
Hi everyone, my name is Tadini Ahuja and I hail from India. I moved to Australia in 2019 after my wedding. I was very clear that I would pursue my further studies in the field of social work, as I believe it is a selfless profession where people are keen to help the people in the community for their betterment. Further, I feel that initially when I moved into the country, I was really excited, but the feeling of nervousness was also attached to it. As English is not my first language, I was a bit conscious and hesitant in the beginning to interact with people, but I feel with time I have learned to live in the place and I have adjusted well.
So Daisy and I met roughly 14 weeks ago doing our placement with the space project, and it's been quite a journey. How are you going, Daisy? How many hours to go?
Let me correct you first. We didn't meet 14 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
It was last year in one of the...
oh, God.
Can't remember which unit was it, but I met once there.
Oh, okay.
So not 14 years ago, yeah.
14 weeks.
Oh, sorry, 14 weeks, yeah.
Okay, yeah. We did do a unit together. I remember now. It was Indigenous Perspectives.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so how many hours to go for placement?
Probably I'm near to the edge. 100, I guess, hopefully.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm not far behind you. I'm so looking forward to Christmas break. Do you have any plans to visit home?
Same here. Can't wait for that.
Do you have any plans to visit home this year?
Oh, yeah. Not home. My partner's home. Probably going to visit his family there for the first time.
Yeah. Cool. So speaking of home days, tell me a little bit about Nepal.
Nepal is a small country between India and China. It's very small, with Himalayas, plain land, lots of culture, festival, lots of celebration, diversity. It's just full of everything.
Yeah.
And I came from small town, which is quite resourceful with land, resourceful with culture, tradition. Yeah, I just missed that.
Yeah. No, I was born in the city of Jakarta, which is Indonesia's capital.
Yeah.
Jakarta is a metropolis, I would say. It's fast-paced, it's buzzing, and it's alive. That's how I would describe my hometown. My parents, also my brother back home, and the women in the family, my sisters and I, have lived here for more than 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you feel any difference between Australia and Jakarta?
Oh, heaps, but we'll talk about it as we go.
Sure.
So what made you decide to come to study in Australia?
To be honest, Australia wasn't my first choice to move overseas. I always had a dream to travel around Europe, especially in Germany. So I even learned my German language. I had 3 levels after I finished my high school. But my parents, no, you can't go to Germany. Like, you're young, you girl, you can't go. It's not safe there. It's not safe in foreign land. So, yeah, so I couldn't fulfill my dream. Yeah. But I've been to Germany once in 2017. So somehow I fulfilled my dream to travel. But I'm looking forward to go there again. Yeah, so speaking about how I came to Australia, I was young. I just followed my partner, who is ex now.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't mature to think what I want in my life. Just follow him and settle here.
Yeah. So is that partly why your parents let you go to Australia, because you weren't alone and because you had a partner? I guess you were with a man. You know.
My parents were not really like agreed for me to travel to Australia. Just because I'm with a boy. Like, they really want me to pursue the education, like finish my master and get a good job.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was a bit stubborn. So
yeah,
I just
fair.
Came along.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't regret my decision. I have my life here, friends. I met so many new people, so many lovely people. I have learned so many things from Australia. And I'm currently studying, which is really good.
Yeah, well, tell me a bit about your study journey.
Well, I began studying in 2020 when COVID started.
Yeah.
But I was doing diploma in business management, I wasn't quite happy about it. So I was always looking for a change, for a career path. So I checked some of the uni, and then we only have Charles Darwin here, so my option was very limited to go with Charles Darwin. But I look towards lots of units or courses they provide. So social work drawn to me. I was like, that would be my passion. But I wasn't sure when I started. But still like, I'll give it a try. So I started with diploma in social care in 2021, and I really enjoyed it. So I pursued my master degree after that.
Yeah, okay. It's definitely a big privilege to be able to choose what you want to study, hey?
I think so, yeah. I feel very privileged on that. A lot of time being international, you don't get to choose what you want to study. You always have to go how do you get your permanent residency? Through what you study?
Yeah.
Like, is it nursing or accounting? So always a lot of international students, including me, had just the option like either accounting or nursing. And I didn't like both of them. So I have to find my way for that.
Yeah.
A lot of time my friends, my cousin was like, just study nursing. Like, it's going to be good. Like, you're going to have a good job. You'll get your permanent. So I said, no, I don't want to. I don't have a passion with nursing. I don't want to kill someone in the hospital. So I know I'm caring, but nursing is not part of my passion. So I just have to go with my gut, and I just chose social work, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, look at you now, thriving.
Yeah. A lot have changed this year after I started my master degree. Yeah. And I feel happy, and I'm blessed, and I'm thankful for everyone who is in my journey in this year.
Yeah. You know, I too had the option to choose what I wanted to study after year 12.
Yeah.
So I did year 10, 11 and 12 in Melbourne, Australia, in the northern suburb of Watsonia. Then I studied industrial design at RMIT for 2 years. I was a bit of a creative spirit, and so I thought, why not? Also, RMIT was the first place that accepted me, so I just went for it, you know. I didn't really think about it.
Looks like that's a cool uni.
Yeah, I was young and naive. It was my 4th year in Australia. I didn't know what I have to do, so
Yeah, I
just
can
did
relate
the first
that.
thing that was available, you know.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I acknowledge that it's a big privilege to be able to choose what you want to study, to have options, and I'm aware, like what you said earlier, that so many international students here don't have the options.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like choosing what you want in your life is very privileged, and not everyone gonna get that privilege. But I always tell people, like, just have to focus on what you really want.
Yeah, that's it. So, what was it like when you first arrived in Sydney, right?
Oh yeah, I came in Sydney in 2014. The very first day when I landed here, it was like 8 a.m. And I had this like big dream about Australia, like big buildings, beaches, nice houses. And that dream came to not end, but like when I was driving towards the suburb where I was going to live, the houses were very small, and it was even smaller than what what we used to have in our country.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. Is this Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah. And plus, you don't see your neighbors outside. You don't see anyone. Like, you just see white people, even if you go to a train station. So everything was like quite new, surprising, shocking. I just feels like my life just turned around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was sort of very big change for me coming to Australia.
Yeah. So you had a picture of what Australia
Yeah.
looks like, and then you got here and it wasn't that.
No, it was completely different. Yeah.
Yeah,
The only time I could see like people of color like in like kebab shop, which is like 2 minutes away from where I live. Yeah, apart from that, like most of and like you don't even get talk to the neighbors. The neighbors like the people from like your neighbors doesn't come out of the house, stay inside. And that was like quite shocking for me, because in our country we have like neighbors outside. We talk to people walking in the street, say hello, and
Yeah. Just going back, Daisy, to what you said earlier about expectation and reality, like I can see where you are coming from. I think what we are fed through the media is that the West is the best, you know?
Yeah.
Like, obviously I'm talking about Western countries, so the European Union, UK, Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand, etc. But life back home is starkly different, isn't it?
Yeah, it is completely.
Yeah.
Especially like the culture we grew up is completely different than what we find here. But Darwin is like completely different again.
Yeah.
Does it feel like it's a part of Australia?
Yeah. And just like we make assumptions about what Australia is like, people here also make assumptions about us.
Yeah.
You know, when I first arrived, kids in school would ask me questions like, do you live in a tent? Do you sleep on the ground? And while there's nothing wrong with that, because some people do live that way, you know, like, I don't know, like assumptions, you know.
Yeah, true. Like they have such a like big assumption about us as a like Asian country.
Yeah.
Like, that can't really change. Well, they should travel more to know about us.
Yeah, like modern society are creatures of
Yeah.
comfort, I guess. We often associate wealth with materialistic things, but wealth is also the people, the community, knowledge, customs and traditions that are passed on from our ancestors. And the older I get, the more I miss home, I feel like.
Completely agree with that. I miss home a lot these days. It's been 3 years I haven't been to my hometown, so quite being homesick about that.
Yeah.
But talking about like the cultural shock that I had, and after coming to Australia, like I moved to a different suburb, which was like sort of in south of the Sydney, and it just struck me seeing all this Asian population, especially Chinese community in that suburb. Yeah, and then people were speaking Chinese, Cantonese, Mandarin, and I was like, oh God, like, is this Australia again?
Yeah, yeah.
So I had two different distinct reality of Australia. In one suburb, you get all white people, in one suburb, you get all the Asian people. So I explained about my experience. How was your experience coming to Australia for the first time?
Yeah, well, for me, it was a lot of feelings and sensations. My family home in Mill Park overlooks the Plenty Gorge parklands.
Yeah.
I was a city girl, so living in the suburb took some adjusting to. But I fell in love with the silence and the open space. The first sunrise that I saw on Wurundjeri country brought a tear to my eye. I remember waking up early because the light sneaked in and brushed my eyes and my room was completely illuminated. I got out of bed and ran outside with my camera. And when I saw the sunrise, I started crying.
Oh.
Because it was so beautiful. And the sun is grey in Jakarta because of the pollution. I'd never seen a sun so orange, you know. When people back home ask me why I stay in Australia, I usually say it's for the view. And that's a half truth. Like, I stay for the opportunities and the freedom to be who I am and who I choose to be. But also the view. Sunlight.
Do you still have that photo with you?
I do. I have to show you one day.
Yeah, make sure you share that with me.
So do you have any funny or awkward stories from your early days in Australia?
I guess there's heaps. I think there are some. When I came here in the beginning, you mean something like very strange to Australia, or?
Yeah, like maybe you were working at some place, or.
Well, I can share some of my experience at my workplace. I used to work in the restaurants, and I used to work in a juice bar as well. The very nightmare would be understanding people, the English. I had my schooling, like, it's 19 years in English. So I never thought, like, English would be that different coming to Australia. People speaking English, but you don't understand them. That was very shocking for me. And so whenever I go to people to take their orders, either in restaurant or juice bar, they used to pronounce the word so differently.
Do you have an example? What?
Well, let me give an example. So there's this one guy, it was my first day or first week in a restaurant. He asked, can I get a lemonade? And just straight away thought, like, we don't do lemonade in this restaurant. And, like, how do I get it? So I went and asked, like, this person asked lemonade. So the bartender, he just, like, gave me this Sprite. Yeah. And I was, like, shocked. Like, this is not lemonade. And
I guess in your head you were thinking about lemon water,
True,
lemon sugar.
Yeah. Isn't it in Asia, like, lemonade is that?
Yeah, that's lemonade.
That was very, like, shocking for me. Like, okay, like, this is lemonade. Yeah. So I learned something that day. Yeah. And other time, like, when I was working in juice bar, there has this, like, huge menu of juices, and you just have to remember, like, what's in what. And so many of veggies I have never heard of, like kale, celery, like silver bean. You have, like, ginger, but other stuff, like, you have never heard of it. And the way they pronounce is, like, completely different than what like, if I see the spelling, my mind would read something different than what people would say. And so there was this, we usually pronounce pear like pear in Nepal.
Yes, pear.
Yeah, so here up here there was like pear. And I was like, what's that? I couldn't understand. So I had to ask someone, like, someone just said pear. And they understood because she was Aussie as well. I was like, pear. So she made the juice. And I was like, okay, that's pear, it's pear.
That's funny. I'm just imagining you at a juice bar and just confused, frozen.
I used to get a nightmare, like, when people order what like mixing their own like ingredients. They would be like there would be like 7 different ingredients on top of that. I was like, how do I like write it? How do I remember it? But yeah, a lot of experience. Know a lot of things. Yeah,
it's all learning, isn't it?
True. Yeah.
Where I feel like I'm still learning today, Daisy.
Yeah, we learn every day.
Yeah, that's
especially coming to a different country where this is not your first language. You keep learning every day.
Yeah, and even like coming from Melbourne, and you coming from Sydney, and then now we're both in Darwin. It's a completely different place, isn't it?
Yeah, true. It's completely different to be here than in Sydney or Melbourne. But every place has their own like pros and cons, so we can't really complain.
Yeah. I'm not complaining. I loved it. I love Darwin.
Yeah, so do I. Well, how about yours? Do you have any like shocking or funny incident like mine, or completely different?
I don't know. I'll just tell you the story.
Yeah, go on.
I started school in the first week I got here. It was July 2008. I went to a Catholic school with predominantly white students and white teachers. I received great education, and I will be forever grateful for that opportunity. But I experienced prejudice and racism for the first time, and I knew what racism was, but experiencing it is a different thing, don't you think?
I can relate that.
Yeah.
Like reading in a book and like having to experience by yourself is so different.
Yeah. Like, for example, I would roll my R. Like, I would say R, because...
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, our language, like, we speak it different.
Yeah, and some kids picked on that, and it was subtle. It was subtle. They would just giggle or laugh with me. But, like, I experienced lots of microaggressions, and I kind of just went along with it and laughed with them. So, like, I eventually learned to speak like Australians, I feel like, because... I hated that. I hated sounding different.
Yeah.
Eventually, I picked up the accent. People say I don't have an Indonesian accent anymore, but I do. I still hear it when I say certain things, when I say certain words, and I can definitely put it on. But weirdly, it feels unnatural now.
Well, I can relate like with the accent. Like I don't understand why people pick on accent. Like every people would speak differently, no matter where they come from. Yeah, coming to like what you said, like I can relate. I speak 3 languages, so even I was in Nepal, people used to pick on my pronunciation and my accent.
Yeah.
So the way we speak, like you mentioned, like R, we had this like T, like ta. So there was like in our national language, there's 2 different ta, and then so I would get mixed on that because of my ethnic language.
Yeah.
So they used to pick on me as well and make fun of me, and I just don't know how to react on that. So it was quite hard, like growing up as a kid and facing that. I wouldn't call it racism, but then there was this discrimination on
100%.
Based on your accent as well.
Yeah. Did you experience any culture shock when you first got here?
Well, like the first, like I mentioned, having to see all these streets with Chinese restaurants and people walking there with Chinese, speaking Mandarin in Cantonese. That was like first culture shock to me. Coming to Australia, you expect white people mostly, but it was like 80% of population people was Asian.
From all over the world. Yeah.
Well, another, if I have to think of something else, no worries. The first very time I listened, no worries, and someone replied or someone, I can't remember, and then I was like, what's no worries? And someone told me like, if someone say you thank you, you replied no worries. And I was like, wow, okay, I don't know what you have, like, did you learn no worries in Indonesia?
No, of course not. That's something I learned here.
So I didn't learn, like I learned here, and I think that no worries become like savior for me. If you don't understand some people talking to you like a white Australian person talking to you in English and you don't get what he is or she is trying to talk, you just say like, yeah, no worries. So been a savior for me. Yeah. And yeah, all these Aussie slangs, can't remember most of them, but quite been like strange. Even my partner, he used most of the slang, and I was like, what? And he was like, oh, this is that. And I was like, what?
Yeah, because your partner is Australian, right?
Yeah.
So is there like still some language barrier there, or not?
Like I wouldn't understand the word he used, but I would just get out like what he exactly want to say.
Yeah.
So I get the meaning, but not
yeah.
meaning of the word that he used.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also like broly, mate, what's that? Why would they make so short? Like, and everything like just like true, breaky, and Sharpie.
Yeah. Australians like to shorten their words, don't they?
And surprising, like, oh, mate, like you just talk like your friend is mate, your stranger, like anyone walking in the street is mate, your enemy is mate. Yeah.
I also heard that you don't like honey chicken.
Yeah.
Daisy, what? Honey chicken is amazing.
Well, like, I would say you're not Asian.
It's not a real Asian food, is it?
No, I Googled that. It's not an authentic Asian food. And the very first time I had my lunch when I was working, I was like, oh, honey chicken, like, must be really good. Like, sort of expecting savory or spicy with, like, don't know what honey, like, would supposed to do with chicken. I was like, oh, it just blew my mind. Like, oh, God, like, why would someone coat chicken with honey? Like, that's so cruelty to the chicken.
Daisy, don't you dare talk bad about honey chicken.
Just imagine KFC coated with honey. How would you feel?
Oh, God.
I don't understand who invented that. Like, I was just like, I was looking at Google, like, who actually did honey chicken? Yeah, not just honey chicken, even the butter chicken here is so sweet. Yeah, like, the curry is meant to be savory or spicy, not sweet.
Yeah.
It's like 10 times mild,
Yeah.
not 10 times like medium or, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I got a better like story about honey chicken. We'll share it someday.
Please do.
I feel as a migrant there are many barriers in adjusting to the new country or place. I would like to share an incident which made me feel that I do not belong in here. It was my first week in the country and I was very anxious and conscious to interact with other people as English is not my first language. I boarded the train for the first time, and when I got in, there was a lady sitting who did not let me sit next to her, because of which I started feeling uncomfortable as if I did something wrong. It was very traumatizing as the behavior was unacceptable, and it took me some time to realize that I have a voice of my own and should always speak up in these situations. With the support of my family, I identified myself as being motivated and confident enough to take a stand in the future if something of this sort happens again. It has been nearly 4 years and I have adjusted well in the country, and I say this because I have had experiences of interacting with some people who are really welcoming and also criticize the actions of other Australian people as they do not reflect humanity in their behavior towards the international students.
So, Daisy, what's the best thing about studying and living in Australia?
I would say there have been like ups and downs for me living in Australia. Like, I learned so many things. I did so many mistakes. And the best thing, I learned how to eat chopstick. Which
Really?
which is I admire. I'm proud of myself. I learned how to use chopstick in Australia, not
Great.
like
Good job.
being an Asian. Like, we still don't use chopstick. We use our hand.
Yeah.
So I can eat a lot of Chinese, Asian dishes with chopsticks. So I'm very proud of that.
Great.
And also another good thing that I did I study again. So I started my study after like 5.5 years after coming to Australia.
Yeah.
So it was a big challenge for me to begin my study here. I didn't know like, if I'm going to be able to study well, like start my study or like continue that part. So I was like, it was a bit of challenging because social work is very different to what I studied before. It was business management, and I did my bachelor in business management too. So I was like, how am I going to navigate myself to social work? But the journey went quite well. There were many people who helped me study, understand the context. Yeah, I didn't have to jump into nursing and accounting, so that's kind of privilege for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely feel like you're on the right path with social work, right?
Yeah, like I really enjoy it now, and I've been like, I know like what I want to do in this 1 year. Like the very first time on March when I begin my first day with social in master, I wasn't sure like, I wasn't still sure if I can make it to the master, but my partner was like, no, it's your passion, like you can do it. So he was always like supporting to me, and I wasn't sure of myself. So that's been quite great, like being him supporting me all the time and saying like, oh, you'll be good. Even though I wasn't sure, I didn't see this happening to me, but it's a big change for me.
Yeah. What about the hardships? Did you experience any difficulty? I'm sure you did.
Yeah, of course. Like any Australian, any international students, I feel being isolated here, not having much friends, leaving your family behind. In the first few years, been quite hard. Like I was just working and then not having much of the days off, not having friends here. Everything was quite new for me. I don't know where to go. So all those things start to make me sort of like depressed, I guess. Yeah, but I'm happy like slowly I'm just gaining my pace, my identity, which I was like, I almost lost my identity. So I forgot who I was. I was living for someone else or like living someone else's dream. But now I'm back to that track where I'm focusing on myself. I'm caring about myself.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah, well, I don't have to pretend to smile anymore. Like I smile when I want to. Yeah. So yeah, things change with the life, and I guess you will understand that too. Like how things change within like months, year.
Yeah. I think I went into flight or fight mode in those initial first few years in Australia, you know. And I think I fought. I tried to become a different person, and I tried really hard to bury the Indonesian Hannah, sadly. Because I didn't want to be seen as the other. I too relate with what you said about being depressed, isolated, and losing your identity. And I guess that's why we're here today, right, Days?
Yeah.
Because we want to talk about these things that international students go through. The joy, the challenges, the struggle. And we want to create a community of international students. We want collective care. We want to look after each other because that's how we're going to get through the day, right?
Yeah, 100%. It is like, at the beginning, like you have this like big challenges coming to your way. But like as you move on, as you walk in this part and walk towards what you want to achieve, like you will get what you want.
Yeah.
And like you will be yourself. You wouldn't have to be someone else. Well, how about your? Is there any like any incidents or any best memories that you have being an international student in Australia?
Yeah. So for me, I love learning, and so the best thing about being an international student for me is having access to different types of knowledge and ways of knowing, doing, and becoming. Especially my time in Darwin, you know, I definitely feel like I'm also on the right path with social work. And I didn't feel that way studying design, so I feel extremely privileged to be in this space today where I'm at.
You actually feel belonging into that space.
Yeah, and it's a magical feeling, isn't it?
I know, definitely.
Yeah.
From my experience, I would say never lose hope when you get a bumpy ride in your life. If you get a steady road, if you want to focus on your goal, like keep your head up, keep walking, and just follow your dreams. And also never forget to enjoy your life. Like, don't live for your future, but also live for your present as well. And always be grateful for the people who have always helped you, support you in your journey, even though they're not with you in your life, but they're still somewhere, and always wish best for them.
Yeah.
And I always write nice cards to the people who helped me, who supported me. Yeah, it's kind of like the way I feel grateful to these people. I just put some nice word in the card. And like, you don't have to do much sort of things for them.
But it's keeping that connection, hey. Because again, the isolation from being an international student can hit you like a ton of bricks. So as soon as you are able to find your safe people, it took me 12 years to find mine, but I finally did, and life is different now. So I guess for me, my advice is to find your safe people. And
also wanted to add something, like, if you ever feel sad, it's okay to cry. You just cry, but the next day gonna bring you something new.
Just let it out. Hey,
just let it out, whatever you have. Or even share with someone you trust. You talk to them, someone who can relate to you. You just talk to them and share your feelings, and that's kind of make you so relief. And next day you'll be a different person, and you want to be like, what do you want to be?
Well, Daisy, you were that person for me at the start of placement, so I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, thanks. Well, I try my best. Not to be good, but just to be with people.
Nah, you do have a beautiful heart, and I'm so glad that you are in my life.
Thank you.
So, Daisy.
Well, you're going to make me cry.
Well, I think everyone is dying to know. But do we like Vegemite? So answer yes or no in 3, okay?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Yes. So you do like
it's something we are like. Not the honey chicken though.
So we do like Vegemite. That's
I
great.
do. Yeah.
Do you have it on toast with butter?
I do have with like butter and toast. Yeah, of course. And sometimes I just like lick it.
Oh.
Like, I don't have that big spoon.
You're a true Aussie now, Daisy.
Well, for that, like, definitely people should try it.
People should,
But the very first time, not a whole spoon.
Yeah.
With the toast is fine.
Yeah. I think that's the right way to do it. Try it with toast. Don't do the spoon thing. That's a trap.
Yeah. And also I've heard like lots of benefit of Vegemite.
Yeah.
So like, I always want to have like whatever have good things.
Yeah.
Good benefits for you.
There you go, international students in Australia. If you haven't tried Vegemite, now is the time.
Go to Woolies, Coles, buy your Vegemite jar, come back and put in toast and eat.
Speaking of Vegemite, I feel like I'm getting hungry now.
Oh, me too.
I reckon I'll go to the shops after this.
Get a Vegemite.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Daisy. It's always a good time with you. And then time, we don't know like the time flies so quick when we talk. Yeah. So until next time.
Thanks for having me, Hannah.
Of course. Thanks to our dear listeners as well.
Oh, of course, yeah. And thanks to everyone who helped us making this podcast as well.
Absolutely. All right, bye.
Thank you.
If this podcast has raised any issues for you, please contact your University Counselling Support Service or Lifeline on 131114.